Today's ceremony will start shortly. Please find your seats. Now, there's a few seats that are available, so those that are standing, if you'd like to have a seat, and the ones that are open, even though they're marked, those are now available. So those that need to be seated, you're welcome to go ahead and take those seats. If you would go ahead and ensure all of your electronic devices are on silence, and today's ceremony will start shortly with a flyover from the 169th Fighter Wing, Mcintyre Air National Guard. Just briefly as well, the aircraft will be coming from our east, which is going to be coming over the top of the fire department. So that's the area that it's going to be coming from if you'd like to be able to start watching that area. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but that's the sound of freedom right there. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joey Duggan, and I will be your MC for today's events. I would like to thank you for attending the 2021 Sumter Shaw Air Force Base 9/11 Memorial Ceremony. Today we'll be paying respects to those who have lost their lives in the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. Thank you to Mcintyre Air National Guard 169th Fighter Wing for conducting today's flyover. Please stand for the presentation of the colors, the singing of the national anthem by the Sumter Law Enforcement Ensemble, and the invocation by Chaplain Anadokin from Shaw Air Force Base Chaplain Corps. Present the colors.
Hold! Hey! Hold! Hold! Hey! And hold! Oh, you see by the dawn's early light was so proudly pale at the twilight's last gleam, whose white stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave
Please, if you would, bow your head and pray with me. Our Father, who lives in heaven, we hallow your name this month. On this day, we honor the life of those who claimed by the brutal attack, which was a result of the unbelievable but undeniable evil plan of our enemy, which found its way into our great country, that lives up with an event that we always remember. Today, after 20 years of impactful events, we are here as a country, defenders, families, city, leaders to tell the story, share the memories, and show support for one another and acknowledge the dark side of life. But Lord, in the midst of the terrible event of 9/11, we are thankful that you empower us to fight back. You strengthen our weak hand and soul to defend our freedom and preserve our future. You gave us hope in the confused state of ours to retain the ultimate intention of our country's founding fathers. Therefore, I beseech you, loving God, to prevent us from the future evil. Give us the ability to live without order. Strengthen us to always live ready. Comfort and encourage the family of our fallen heroes. Empower the hands of our defenders. Preserve the prosperity of our land and continue to bless all the citizens of the United States of America. So we can boldly say, in God alone we trust. All this I pray in your most holy name. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Honor Guard, Chaplain Antidote, and Sumter Law Enforcement Ensemble. I would like to begin today by introducing our official party and today's guest speakers. First, I'd like to introduce the Mayor of Sumter, the Honorable David Merchant. The Chairman of Sumter County Council, the Honorable James T. McCain, and his guest, Miss Lisa. And the Commander of the 20th Fighter Wing, Colonel Lawrence Sullivan. We would also like to welcome all of our distinguished guests, first responders, military members, families, and friends in attendance today. On September 11th, 2001, 4 commercial airliners were hijacked over the U.S. soil, 2 of which crashed into the north and south towers of New York City, one at the Pentagon building in Washington, D.C., and the last in an open field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, en route to the Capitol building. 2,977 souls were lost that day. Of the almost 3,000 victims, 343 were firefighters from the FDNY, 71 police officers from the NYPD, and 2 paramedics also from the FDNY who gave the ultimate sacrifice. They will never be forgotten. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the honor to introduce our first guest speaker, Colonel Lawrence Sullivan.
Good morning. It's a privilege to be here. We're thinking back to 20 years ago. I know a lot of the people in the crowd have very distinct, sharp memories of what happened that day. It was a beautiful day, just like this, and we're here to honor the almost 3,000 people that lost their lives that day, specifically honor the service of our first responders, the fire and the police department, that ran to the sound of the guns and charged into those towers to save their fellow Americans. We'll also reflect on the uncertainty that they had. Remember watching one tower get hit, wondering what was happening, watching a second get hit, and then hearing about the Pentagon later, and then the aircraft in Pennsylvania. And that was just that one day. And we were uncertain if attacks would continue later that day, in the following weeks and months or years. And for 20 years, nothing happened here in the United States. And that's no small feat. And that has grown from the contributions made by this community and the people at Shaw. And from the first day of 9/11, after 9/11, till today, we've had soldiers and airmen deployed continuously keeping this country safe. We've launched armed fighters, just like the ones that flew over, in defense of the homeland, continuously, and even now. We've sent soldiers and airmen forward into combat, and many people from the base and in this community have given their lives in defense of the country since then. And that contribution continues even today. And as the events in Afghanistan over the last few weeks played out, and our activities there drew to a close after 20 years, the airlift that evacuated the civilians and our remaining military was coordinated here from Shaw. The soldiers that were deployed to hold that last bit of ground for our departure were commanded and controlled here out of Shaw. The drone sorties that were flown there as overwatch to protect our final movements were flown here out of Shaw. And the sacrifices and the contributions continue. Right now we have approximately 500 airmen from Shaw deployed all over the world, continuing to defend our nation. We're going to send another 500 or 600 out the door here in the coming months, and that legacy of service will continue. And it's not just a contribution from the base, but it's a contribution of this community. The base exists as a part of this community. It's our home, and the activities of everyone here are responsible for the continued security of our country, and every day from 9/11 till today. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Sullivan. And now I'd like to introduce our second guest speaker, the Honorable Jim McCain.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to speak to you today on this solemn occasion. We are here to remember. We're here to remember and pay homage to the men and women who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. Far too many first responders perished that awful day 20 years ago. Brave people whose final act on this earth was saving the lives of others. We lost a sense of comfort that our enemies could never breach our homeland. When the Twin Towers fell in New York City and a Pentagon was attacked in Washington, D.C., and when United Airlines Flight 93 crashed into a Pennsylvania field, our country was reeling. Those attacks left a deep wound in our country. And then something happened. You started seeing American flags on lawns and cars and Old Glory pins on suits and dresses. People slowed down a bit. We talked to each other. A lot of people decided to rethink their priorities in the aftermath, to decide what was important and to realize that no matter our background, we're all Americans. We learned about people like Todd Beamer, who led a revolt against the hijackers on United Flight 93, and we know he was heard saying, "Let's roll," as he and others tried to overtake the cockpit of that airplane. But before those fateful words, Beamer was talking with a phone operator named Lisa Jefferson. After Beamer and Jefferson recited the Lord's Prayer in the 23rd Psalm, he told her this: "If I don't make it, please call my family and let them know how much I love them." In the aftermath of September 11, 2001, we learned about Inspector Anthony Infante from the Port Authority Police. A survivor said one of Infante's last acts in the North Tower stairwell was calming people down and telling them there was a clear exit to the street. We learned about Shirley Allen, director of the Children's World Learning Center, which was located about 30 yards from the Pentagon. Ms. Allen and 36 of her co-workers evacuated 148 children, which included babies in cribs. Rescuers relocated her group 5 times. According to a report in the Wall Street Journal, she demanded loudly that security forces accompany the children as they moved. Her main fear was losing a child. Shirley's husband was a naval officer whose Pentagon office was in the behalf of Flight 77. 3 hours after her emergency evacuation, the forensic relocation of 148 children, she broke down in tears. Her husband was safe, the children were safe. We heard stories like this in the aftermath of 9/11, a lot of stories. Firefighters and police officers and airline stewardesses and child care workers who showed all of us what the true American spirit really is all about. Even as the smoke rose over the Hudson River from where the Twin Towers stood, even as our commander-in-chief stood in the rubble and rallied us, the scars left in the wake of the attacks began to heal. We raised our first responders up. We thanked them. We hugged them. Members of our military walking through airports got standing ovations. 20 years later, I'm still filled with awe and gratitude for our airmen and soldiers, our paramedics and EMTs, and sheriff office deputies, and our police officers, and all the support staff. It takes a rare kind of person to rush toward danger, to run into a home or business that's fully engulfed in flames, to run into a dangerous situation to minimize a threat to the public, to put on a uniform and swear your allegiance to our Constitution and our country, and to protect it and serve it selflessly. That's what Todd Bowman did, and Anthony Infante, and Shirley Allen. We will remember their names and the names of many others we lost that day. When you have a scar, you remember how you got it, and you remember how it healed. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. McCain. At this time, I would now honor the memory of those who were lost on September 11th, 2001, with the laying of the two wreaths. One wreath will be laid by the Emergency Responders Honor Guard, a Royal Air Force coalition, partners from the United Kingdom deployed here in support of the Air Force Central Operations, will be placing the second wreath. The Shaw Air Force Base Fire Department will ring the last alarm. The history of the last alarm began over 200 years ago. As firefighters began their tour of duty, it was the bell that signaled the beginning of each day's shift. Throughout that day and night, each alarm was sounded by the bell, which summons these brave souls to fight fire and to place their lives in jeopardy for the good of their fellow citizen. And when the fire was out and the alarm had come to an end, it was the bell that signaled to all the completion of that call. When a firefighter has died in the line of duty, paying the supreme sacrifice, it was the mournful toll of the bell that solemnly announced a comrade's passing. It is customary that the last alarm be sounded for our brothers and sisters who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, and having selflessly given their lives for the good of their fellow man, their task completed, their duties well done, and to signify they are returning home. Honor Guard, Wing Commander Rutherford, would you please come forward for the laying of the memorial wreaths? Ladies and gentlemen, will you please rise and join in rendering a salute and ringing of the last alarm in a moment of silence to remember and reflect on the sacrifices made by our falling brothers and sisters. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. And now I'd like to introduce the Honorable Mayor David Merchant to the podium to provide our closing remarks.
Wow, that's powerful. As we close this 9/11 memorial service, it's hard not to be moved by what we saw with the air power, the laying of the wreaths, with the honoring of those that fall. It's hard not to be reminded of the many brave Americans that 20 years ago today gave the ultimate sacrifices. The first responders that woke up one morning, grabbed their lunchbox, headed to the station, clocked in for whatever their shift may hold, not knowing that that shift would change their life forever and be like none they'd ever had prior or since. But it didn't matter. They were there to serve. Their job was to go and protect, no matter what the call was. So when the bell went off, the alarm sounded over the radio, they got in their patrol cars, their fire engines, their ambulances, and headed to the scene. They ran into a building, massive skyscrapers. Unbelievable unless you can see it, how tall it is. An unbelievable alarm that they had to respond to. They rushed into those buildings, not knowing what they were going to encounter. Buildings that had 2 airliners crash into it, something that's never, they've never experienced before. There again, it didn't matter. People needed help. And so they rushed in, not knowing the structural integrity of the building, not knowing how long it may last. They went in to help people. So that's what you guys do in the first responder community, and we're thankful for that. For me, it was one of those moments. We've all got them. Through life, you've got just those few moments that you'll never forget exactly where you were when it happened. 1986, Miss Miller's 5th grade science class watching the Challenger incident unfold. And then 20 years ago, almost exactly at this time, coming out of a meeting at the bank, hearing a plane crashed into the World Trade Center in New York, thinking it was an unfortunate private pilot incident. But to go home just a few minutes later and to see the tragedy unfold that we're memorializing today. But it was from this tragedy that we got to see the American spirit. Throughout the next hours, days, and weeks, more first responders came in, volunteers came in across the country to come in and see and help. There again, because people needed help. As they worked through the rubble, just looking for their fallen friends and citizens, just going through that, just working. Americans, this should give us comfort. It should give us comfort that we've got first responders willing to go into unknown situations to help us, to help save us. So today, as we honor this 20-year memorial of the fallen, let us be encouraged. Let's be encouraged that here in Sumter we have a police, a fire, and EMS that are professionals that wake up every day, grab their lunchbox, head to the station and clock in for whatever their shift may hold. That shift may one day require an emergency for you, for me, or for our loved ones. So when that alarm sounds, that they'll be there for us. And let's be thankful for that. They're ready to go anywhere in this city, this county, or this area to help those that are in need. So we should take comfort in that. So thank you, Sumter Police Department. Thank you, Sumter Sheriff's Department. Thank you, Sumter Fire Department. And thank you, Sumter EMS, for what you do to help keep us safe in our community. Never forget, honor those fallen heroes.
Thank you, Mayor Merchant. Many of you have noticed the coins placed on the memorial. Each coin left on a memorial or grave site has a special significance. The coins are left to communicate and connect those in the memorial to their family and community. A penny left on a grave or memorial site means someone has visited. The visitor may or may not be a veteran or a member of the armed services. According to some, a penny is simply a tangible symbol of paying respect, and thus can also be found on a civilian's grave. A nickel means the individual went through boot camp, training, or school with the deceased. It may also indicate the two trained together in other capacities during their service, especially if they received additional specialized training of any kind. A dime carries a larger meaning because they show their visitor has served with that deceased at some point in their career. They may not have served together for long or known each other well, but for some period of time, they were in the same place having similar experiences. When a quarter is left on the grave, that means the visitor was with that individual when they died. The visitor could have been a buddy, but they may have also been a medic or hospital staff. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the city of Sumter, Sumter County, Shaw Air Force Base, we want to thank you for your attendance. We invite you now, at the closing of the ceremony, to visit our 9/11 memorial and pay your respects. This concludes our ceremony.
Hey!